The call from the void. The message arrived at precisely 2:17 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. In the depths of Earth's galactic communications hub, nestled beneath the Nevada desert, Lieutenant Sarah Chen nearly dropped her thermos of coffee when her monitors erupted in cascading alerts. The night shift had been quiet for months, filled with routine maintenance checks and the occasional deep space probe telemetry. This was different. Sarah had been monitoring interstellar frequencies for 3 years, ever since humanity had achieved faster-than-light communication technology. Most nights passed without incident, filled only with cosmic background radiation and the gentle hum of servers. But tonight, her screens displayed something that made her blood run cold, an SOS signal. Not from any human vessel or colony, but from something else entirely. The signal used mathematical patterns that transcended language barriers, a universal cry for help that any spacefaring civilization could understand. Sarah's training kicked in immediately. She recorded the transmission, verified its authenticity, and forwarded it up the chain of command while her hands trembled slightly with excitement. Within minutes, the quiet communications center transformed into organized chaos. Security personnel flooded the room, followed by senior officers who had been roused from their beds. General Marcus Rodriguez, head of Earth's Galactic Defense Initiative, arrived still buttoning his uniform jacket. "What do we have, Lieutenant?" Rodriguez asked, his weathered face illuminated by the glow of multiple screens. Sarah pulled up the decoded message. "Sir, it's a genuine distress call from the Epsilon Eridani system. The signal originates from a previously unknown alien civilization, identifying themselves as the Zalathi. They're under attack by a hostile force and requesting immediate military assistance." The room fell silent. First contact scenarios had been planned and rehearsed countless times, but nobody had anticipated it would come in the form of a desperate plea for help. Rodriguez studied the data scrolling across the screens. Estimated time until their defenses fail. Based on their projections, approximately 40 standard days, sir. They've included technical specifications of their enemy's capabilities. It's concerning. The general's jaw tightened. "Get me a direct line to the World Unity Council, and wake up Admiral Nakamura. If we're going to respond to this, we'll need the entire fleet." 3 hours later, Earth's representatives gathered in an emergency session of the Galactic Council, humanity's first interaction with the greater cosmic community. The holographic chamber displayed representatives from 12 different species, each more exotic than the last. Crystalline beings that chimed when they spoke, gaseous entities contained within mechanical shells, and creatures that defied human classification systems entirely. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood to address the assembly, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Honored delegates, Earth has received a distress signal from the Zalathi people. They face extinction at the hands of an aggressive force known as the Devourer Swarm. We come before this council to coordinate a joint response." The reaction was not what humanity expected. A serpentine creature with iridescent scales spoke first, its translator rendering its hisses into emotionless English. "The Zalathi chose to colonize the frontier regions despite our warnings. The risks were known." Another delegate, resembling a massive jellyfish suspended in a water-filled sphere, pulsed with bioluminescent patterns. "The Devourer Swarm is unstoppable. Previous attempts to combat them have resulted in the loss of entire fleets. Prudence dictates we fortify our core systems rather than waste resources on a doomed world." One by one, the alien representatives expressed similar sentiments. The frontier was dangerous. The Zalathi had made their choice. Better to contain the threat than confront it directly. The cosmic community had written off an entire species with bureaucratic efficiency. Vasquez felt anger rising in her chest, but maintained diplomatic composure. "So the Council's position is to do nothing, to let billions die because it's more convenient." The Council's speaker, an ancient being whose form seemed to shift between dimensions, replied with what might have been sympathy. "Young species often struggle with the harsh realities of galactic survival. In time, humanity will understand. Some battles cannot be won." The ambassador straightened her shoulders. "Then Earth will go alone." Shocked silence rippled through the chamber. Several delegates exchanged what Sarah assumed were worried glances, though reading alien body language remained challenging. Ambassador Vasquez, the speaker said carefully, Earth has been spacefaring for barely a century. Your military capabilities, while impressive for your age, are not sufficient for this threat. We strongly advise. Earth doesn't abandon those in need, Vasquez interrupted, her voice cutting through the chamber. If the Council won't act, we will. Consider this our formal notification under Article 7 of the Galactic Accord. Earth's expeditionary fleet will depart for Epsilon Eridani within the week. The journey to the Epsilon Eridani system would take 28 days using humanity's latest jump drive technology. The USS Resolute, a kilometer-long dreadnought, served as the flagship of Earth's hastily assembled relief force. 37 vessels in total, ranging from nimble frigates to massive carrier platforms, pushed their engines to the limit. Captain Maria Santos stood on the Resolute's bridge, watching the stars blur past at incomprehensible speeds. Her executive, Officer Commander James Wright, approached with a datapad. Final crew manifests are in, Captain. 12,000 personnel across the fleet. Everyone volunteered, even knowing the risks. Santos nodded, unsurprised. That's who we are, James. When someone calls for help, we answer, even if we're the only ones who will. The fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the system's edge, immediately detecting the ongoing battle near the fourth planet. Tactical displays showed the Zalathi homeworld under siege, its orbital defenses crumbling under relentless assault. The Devourer swarm lived up to its name. Massive bioships, each the size of a city, moved through space like predatory leviathans. Smaller attack craft swarmed around them in perfectly coordinated formations, overwhelming defensive positions through sheer numbers. Jesus Christ. Right, whispered, studying the sensor data. Their largest ships are 15 kilometers long. How do we fight something like that? Captain Santos's expression hardened. The same way humans always have. We get creative. The first communication from the Zalathi came through moments later. The video feed showed a being that resembled a tall, graceful insect with crystalline wings and compound eyes that reflected rainbow patterns. Despite the alien features, the exhaustion and desperation in its posture were unmistakable. Unknown vessels, this is Prime Coordinator Valix of the Zalathi Defense Force. We detected your arrival, but you appear to be alone. Did the Galactic Council not send additional support? Santos stepped forward. Prime Coordinator, I'm Captain Maria Santos of Earth's Expeditionary Fleet. The Council chose not to intervene. We came anyway. The Zalathi's wings flickered in what might have been surprise. You came alone? Your species risks everything for strangers? On Earth we have a saying, Santos replied. No one fights alone. We're here to help, and we brought our entire fleet. Now tell us everything about these Devourers, their weaknesses, their tactics. Anything that might give us an edge. Velix's compound eyes seemed to focus more intently on the human captain. Your ships are smaller than theirs. Your weapons appear less advanced. Yet you speak with such confidence. Why? Santos smiled grimly. Because we're human. We're from a world that tried to kill us every day for millions of years. We learned to fight back against impossible odds. And we learned that when you're outnumbered and outgunned, you don't fight fair. The tactical briefing revealed the full scope of the challenge. The Devourer swarm operated as a hive mind, each ship and fighter connected through quantum entanglement. They consumed entire biospheres, stripping planets bare to fuel their endless expansion. Conventional weapons barely scratched their organic hulls, which could regenerate damage faster than most species could inflict it. They're perfect predators, Valix explained, his translated voice heavy with defeat. We've held them off for 30 days, but our defenses are failing. Perhaps you should evacuate what survivors you can before nothing, Commander Wright interrupted. Captain, I've been analyzing their movement patterns. They're predictable, too predictable. A hive mind has advantages, but it also has a critical weakness. Santos leaned in. They all think the same way. Exactly. They can't adapt to unconventional tactics because they have no individual creativity. They're a perfect military machine that's never faced an imperfect enemy. The human fleet began preparations for battle with an energy that puzzled their Zalathi allies. Engineers modified weapon systems, stripping out safety protocols and overclocking power systems. Marines prepared boarding pods with equipment that violated several galactic treaties on warfare. Pilots ran simulation after simulation, practicing maneuvers that defied conventional space combat doctrine. Sarah Chen, now serving as a communications specialist aboard the Resolute, worked to establish better connections with Zalathi refugees. She found herself speaking with Crix, a young Zalathi engineer who had escaped the outer colonies. "Your people work with such chaos," Crix observed, watching human crews rush past. "No harmony, no synchronized movements, yet somehow you accomplish your tasks," Sarah laughed. "That's because we're all different. Every human thinks differently, solves problems differently. It looks like chaos, but it's actually our strength. The Devourers won't know what hit them." "You truly believe you can win?" "I believe we'll give them a fight they've never seen before, and sometimes that's enough to change everything." As the human fleet moved toward engagement range, Captain Santos addressed all ships. "Ladies and gentlemen, in a few hours we'll engage an enemy that the entire galaxy fears. They're bigger than us, stronger than us, and they outnumber us 10-1. They've never lost a battle." She paused, letting her words sink in. "They're about to learn what happens when you threaten someone under humanity's protection. We're the children of Earth, a death world that forged us in fire and struggle. We've survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and disasters that would have ended other species. Today, we remind the galaxy why humans don't give up. All ships, prepare for combat. Let's show them what Deathworlders can do." The assembled fleet responded with a roar of acknowledgement. Weapons charged, shields raised, and engines burned bright against the stellar backdrop. The Devourer swarm, sensing new prey, turned its attention toward the approaching human ships. Kiader. Battle for Epsilon Eridani was about to begin. The Deathworlders' response. The first wave of Devourer fighters descended upon the human fleet like a plague of locusts. Each bioship moved with eerie synchronization, their organic weapons charging. With bioluminescent energy, the conventional response would have been to form defensive formations, to weather the storm behind overlapping shield coverage. Humanity chose chaos instead. "All ships, execute Scatter Protocol Alpha," Captain Santos commanded. The human fleet exploded outward in seemingly random directions. Frigates dove beneath the plane of battle while destroyers climbed above it. Carriers launched their fighters not in organized wings, but in individual pairs that immediately split apart. To the hive mind of the Devourers, it must have looked like panic. It was anything but. "Sir, they're trying to reform their attack pattern," reported the tactical officer aboard the Resolute. "The lag time between their course corrections is increasing." Santos nodded with satisfaction. "They're not used to targets that don't behave predictably. Keep them guessing. Signal the Thunderstrike and the Defiant. Time for the Matador maneuver." The two human destroyers suddenly reversed course, charging directly at the center of the Devourer formation. The bioships, programmed for millions of years to expect prey to flee, hesitated for a fraction of a second. In space combat, hesitation was death. Nuclear mines, disguised as debris, detonated throughout the Devourer formation. The mines had been deployed by stealth drones during the fleet's initial scatter, floating dormant until proximity sensors detected enemy vessels. Brilliant flashes erupted among the bioships as nuclear fire consumed dozens of fighters. "Direct hits on multiple targets," Commander Wright reported. "Their regeneration can't keep up with that level of damage." The Devourers adapted quickly, their hive mind processing the new threat. But adaptation meant predictability, and predictability meant vulnerability. Phase 2, Santos ordered. "Launch the Wasps." From the carrier USS Hive, a special squadron deployed. These fighters had been modified during the journey, their weapons replaced with mining lasers and industrial cutting beams. They weren't designed for space combat. They were designed for salvage operations. Lieutenant Jake Cutter Morrison led the improvised squadron, his voice crackling over comms. "Wasp Squadron, we're not here to fight fair. Target their sensor organs and communication nodes. blind them, then gut them. The small human fighters darted between the massive bioships like their namesake insects. While Devourer weapons tracked the larger human vessels, the wasps latched onto enemy hulls and began cutting. Industrial tools proved surprisingly effective against organic armor, especially when applied to sensitive areas. Aboard the Zalathi command station, Prime Coordinator Valix watched in astonishment. "Your fighters. They're not fighting. They're dissecting our enemies while they still live." "Humans have a saying," Captain Santos replied, monitoring the battle. "If you find yourself in a fair fight, your tactics suck. We're not trying to match their strength. We're exploiting their weaknesses." The Devourer's response was swift and brutal. Several human ships took devastating hits, their shields failing under concentrated bioweapon fire. The frigate USS Courage exploded in a brilliant fireball, all hands lost. But for every human ship destroyed, 3 Devourer vessels fell silent, their organic systems failing under unconventional assault. "Captain, we've identified their command node," the science officer reported. "The largest bioship in their formation. If we can take it down, the entire swarm loses coordination," Santos finished. "But that thing's the size of Manhattan. Our weapons can barely scratch it." Commander Wright studied the tactical display, then smiled slowly. "Captain, I have an idea. It's insane, probably suicidal, and violates at least 6 laws of physics, as we understand them. In other words, perfectly human. Let's hear it." Wright outlined his plan. They would use the Resolute itself as a weapon, overloading its jump drive to create a localized spatial distortion. The resulting gravitational shear would tear apart anything within a kilometer radius. The catch? Someone would have to pilot the ship manually into position, and they wouldn't survive the process. Santos didn't hesitate. "Evacuate all non-essential personnel to the escape pods. I'll handle the helm." "Captain, That's an order, James. Someone needs to coordinate the fleet after this. Besides," she smiled sadly, "a captain goes down with her ship." As evacuation procedures began, an unexpected voice interrupted. "Captain Santos, this is Crix of the Zalathi. I've been analyzing your plan. There's a flaw in your calculations." Santos frowned. "Explain." "The bioship's organic structure includes quantum entanglement nodes. Your spatial distortion won't just destroy the command ship, it will cascade through their entire network. The feedback could destroy every Devourer vessel in the system." "That's not a flaw. That's a bonus." "But the energy required. Your ship doesn't have enough power." Crix hesitated. "Unless you link with our remaining orbital defense platforms, we can channel our entire planetary power grid through your systems. It will burn out our infrastructure, leave us defenseless for years. But it might work." The human captain considered this. "Your people would sacrifice their defenses for a chance to win. We've learned something from you humans today. Sometimes the greatest strength is the willingness to risk everything for others." The next hour saw frantic preparations as human and Zalathi engineers worked together, jury-rigging connections between incompatible systems. The defending fleet, human and alien alike, formed a protective screen around the Resolute as it powered up for its final mission. The Devourers, sensing danger, threw everything at the human flagship. Bioships that had been held in reserve surged forward, their weapons turning space into a hellscape of energy discharge and organic projectiles. Human fighters died by the dozen, selling their lives dearly to buy precious minutes. Sarah Chen, evacuating with the rest of the crew, paused at an observation port. Through the transparent aluminum, she watched Captain Santos alone on the bridge, her hands steady on the controls as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. 30 seconds to jump drive overload, the captain's voice announced over ship-wide comms. "All remaining crew abandon ship. It's been an honor serving with you." In the Zalathi command center, Valix's compound eyes reflected the tactical display. "She knows she won't survive. Why does she do this?" Sarah answered quietly. "Because that's what humans do. We see someone in trouble and we help, even if it costs us everything." The Resolute's jump drive reached critical mass. Reality itself seemed to scream as the fundamental forces of the universe were twisted beyond their breaking point. The massive Devourer command ship, sensing danger too late, tried to retreat. Captain Maria Santos smiled as her final act ripped a hole in space-time. The explosion was visible from the planet's surface. A new star blazed in the heavens as the spatial distortion cascaded through the Devourer hive mind. Bioships throughout the system convulsed and died, their shared consciousness experiencing death multiplied 1,000-fold. Within minutes, the most feared force in the galaxy was reduced to drifting organic debris. In the aftermath, as human rescue ships collected survivors and Zalathi defense forces mopped up the few remaining Devourer drones, a profound silence settled over the battlefield. The impossible had happened. David had slain Goliath not with a single stone, but with humanity's greatest weapon, the willingness to sacrifice for others. 3 days later, at an emergency session of the Galactic, Council Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the assembled representatives. The chamber, which had dismissed humanity's offer of help, now buzzed with a different energy. The after-action report is complete, Vasquez announced. Human losses: 47% of our deployed fleet, including 8,300, and 21 personnel. Zalathi civilian casualties: less than 100,000 compared to projected losses of 8 billion. The Devourer swarm has been eliminated as a galactic threat. The Serpentine delegate who had first spoken against intervention now bowed its head. The Council miscalculated. We assumed a young species could not face such a threat. We were wrong. The ancient speaker, its form shifting between dimensions, addressed the assembly. Earth has shown us something we had forgotten. Sometimes the greatest strength is not in avoiding danger, but in facing it for the sake of others. The Galactic Council hereby recognizes Earth as a full member, with all rights and responsibilities thereof, but Vasquez wasn't finished. The Council's recognition is appreciated, but Earth wants something more. We propose the establishment of a Galactic Rescue Corps, a multinational force dedicated to responding to distress calls regardless of political considerations. Because next time someone calls for help, they shouldn't have to wonder if anyone will answer. On Earth, the news of the victory was met with a mixture of celebration and mourning. Children who had lost parents in the battle were adopted by extended families, their education and welfare guaranteed by a grateful planet. Memorials were erected not just for the fallen humans, but for all species who had died in the conflict. The Zalathi, saved from extinction, didn't just rebuild their world. They transformed it, adopting human principles of individual initiative while retaining their collective harmony. Their first act as a recovering species was to contribute their most advanced technology to Earth's proposed rescue corps. Crix, the young Zalathi engineer who had helped create the final weapon, found himself appointed as liaison to Earth. During a ceremony on Luna Base, he met Sarah Chen, who had been promoted for her actions during the crisis. "Your people changed us," Crix said, his crystalline wings catching the light. "We spent so long seeking perfection through unity that we forgot the strength found in diversity." Sarah smiled. "And you taught us that sometimes the greatest differences can lead to the strongest partnerships. That's what the galaxy learned today. Humans may be from a death world, but death isn't what we bring to the stars. Then what do you bring? Hope. And the promise that no one fights alone." In the years that followed, the Deathworlder response became legend throughout the galaxy. Not because humans were the strongest species or the most advanced, but because they were the ones who answered when everyone else looked away, the ones who proved that sometimes the willingness to help others is the greatest strength of all, and, whenever a distress signal echoed through the cosmos, beings of all species would remember the day the Deathworlders answered the call, and know that help would always come to those who needed it most. Because that's what humans do. They answer the call.